Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the EO Wonder podcast. I'm Kalika, and welcome to another inspiring episode. Today, we're thrilled to have Katy Gala with us. Katy has spent over a decade empowering C-suite executives, business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders to achieve personal and professional breakthroughs through her holistic executive coaching. And she also has sold her business. So we're going to talk about her origin story, how she continues to help inspire entrepreneurs. And I'm so excited to have her on the show. Welcome to the EO Wonder podcast, Katy.
Thank you, Kalika. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, I'd love for everyone to know how you got to be a holistic transformational coach.
The story starts, I think you look back kind of in childhood. I grew up in the Bay Area and I had two older brothers and they were really into sports. And so I was really into sports. And so I think being an endurance athlete most of my life, I got a lot of opportunities in leadership, being a captain, and other opportunities within school. And literally, I was really lucky because school initially wasn't that easy for me. I had to work twice as hard as everyone else to get good grades. And I remember I was having a struggle in one of my classes freshman year of high school. And I went into my brother's room and he sat me down and he asked me, "What do you want to do in your life?" And I looked at him and I smiled. I almost kind of laughed. I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I want to do in my life?" I just didn't really understand that. He's like, "No, like, what do you want to be? Like, where are you going?" Basically. And it was the first time anyone had ever asked me. I was 14 years old. And in that moment, I basically told him, I was like, "I want to help people. I want to travel the world. I want to be financially independent. And I want to really make a difference." And so he's like, "Okay, great. Let's sit down and map that out and how you're going to do that." So it was this profound thing where I really got clear on what I needed to do to be an entrepreneur and to really be able to take my life in my own hands and take ownership and responsibility of my results. And I grew up in a family where both my parents were very entrepreneurial. I feel like I've been working since I was 12. Anything extra I wanted, I had to work and pay for it. So I feel like there's a lot of gifts in that because it made me have a great relationship with working. And when I went to school, I thought I was going to become a doctor because I loved science and anatomy and physiology. I loved helping people. And so I went to UC Berkeley and I was basically ready to do pre-med. And then I shadowed some doctors that were friends and they did not become pre-med because of insurance. And so my second love was human behavior and learning about communication because I was just like, why are we here and how can we connect better and how can we navigate life? And so that was always a core question for me. And so that's what I majored in. And I actually went into the business side of medicine. So I was in medical sales and medical device sales in my early 20s. I was really lucky because I just got paired up with the right territory. I moved down to Los Angeles. And in my early 20s, I was making well over six figures. And I loved what I did. And I eventually got into medical device sales and implantable devices. And it was a very technical sale. I was in thousands of surgeries of a foot away from the patient and then doing multi-million-dollar contracts for hospitals. And then about 16 years ago, I was in two consecutive accidents where I had to rebuild my whole entire body and relearn how to walk. And so what happened was I was a competitive triathlete. And again, I was this endurance athlete and training for triathlons when I was not working because I was basically a workaholic, which I think all of us who are listening, if you're an entrepreneur, there's probably a tendency there. At some point, we all had to hustle and like really work hard. And that was definitely my origin story. And then I was training for triathlons and I got hit by a car on my bike training one day. And then literally 3 months, I was in a hit and run accident where the back end of my car went in the center of my car and my seatbelt didn't catch me and the windshield shattered. And so it really put me on this path that was unusual for someone in their 20s to have to rebuild their whole body. And what I mean by that is I had a torn MCL and ACL, I had two herniated discs, concussion, hips went out of alignment. I had my second accident, I had really bad PTSD after it because it was a hit and run accident. It was the second accident in 3 months. And I just started having digestive issues like IBS, and then I had chronic pain that turned into fibromyalgia. And so it was just this struggle, and I kept working. It was like this identity crisis because I had always been this high achiever, and I definitely identified as being an athlete, and now I could barely walk. And I was walking with a lot of pain. And so I got knee surgery, and then I got all the epidural shots and cortisol shots and nerve block in my neck. I mean, I had a lot of like nervous system issues and within my fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And eventually, after about 2 years of this chaos where I would be working hyped up on coffee and, anti-anxiety medication during the week, and the weekends I would just be crashing and be crawling to the bathroom because I could barely like function. I realized in this one of these episodes of crawling to the bathroom and crawling back on this lush carpet and looking up at the ceiling, I realized that I never had made the decision that I was going to heal. And this is so important. It was so crazy because I have this Western medicine background. I know anatomy and physiology really well. And I was having such a hard time navigating things because I was in a chronic disease state, in multiple disease states. And again, I was being presented after going to 8 or 9 orthopedic surgeons, like, we really got to do some spine surgery. I mean, you've done everything. And so I realized I'd been so external in my healing. I'd never gone internally. And again, made that decision I was going to heal. And so when I made that decision, I had a vision I was going to heal without all these surgeries. And my whole life just started, it just basically got clarity. And I think that's a lot of what I do when I work with clients is we want clarity on all levels. It's a deconstructing to reconstruct process so that you can make decisions and you're clear about who you are, what you want, what your business is about, how we're going to navigate. And so for me, I needed that clarity and to make that decision, all in decision, that I was going to heal. I quit my job within like a few weeks after that, and I started traveling the world and studying with different doctors, healers, and leaders and learning their strategies. And in that 2 months after that, hitting rock bottom, I healed more than I had in 2 years. Because literally, it's a mindset change. I was so the victim before and blaming, and I was so overwhelmed. And I never had dealt with anxiety or fear really before ever. I think having older brothers and just an atmosphere of being athletic, and then again, like just things, if you worked hard, you got results. I usually would just, if I didn't know how to do something, I would do a cannonball in the deep end and just swim and figure out how to do it. And so the weirdest thing was to deal with anxiety and fear for the first time. And once I had made that decision and just went all in that I was going to heal without these surgeries, that it's like everything just got in position for me. And so I lived in an ashram in India. I had studied yoga for about 10 years at that point, but had more done it on a physical level, not looking at like the yoking of the emotional, mental, spiritual level. And then I was in monasteries in Japan. I studied Rinzai Zen meditation for about 12 years underneath a Roshi, and also with elders in South America, and just really also in LA, acquired a lot of teachers that had deep science background knowledge because that's my basis. And I was so desperate for this information. And it was before really functional medicine was popular. So I would go to one person and get a little information here and then get another information over here. And so eventually I put that information together. One of my teachers, after about 4 years after my injuries, I healed completely and I'm in better shape now than before my accident. So one of my teachers was like, you got to create curriculum. Like, people are suffering out there. Like, you have to like lay out a step-by-step strategy of what you did and the ideology and what's going on here, because it was just this whole transformation that happened. And so that's when I started creating curriculum. And I realized, I think what happens as entrepreneurs and is that you learn so much about yourself during the challenge. Your character comes out, and either you have a choice. You can go down one path where it's this path where you could be a victim or blaming, or again, there's hardships. I get it. And I think being entrepreneurs, it can be lonely. And so it's like, how do you build community? You get support of positivity and people that maybe are 10 steps ahead of you, mentorship, advisory. Or like, so to me, those are the two paths. Like, you could either just keep going down where it's not really serving you, and it's just this snowball effect. And I get it. It can be really overwhelming, whatever the situation, if it's work or in your personal life or health crisis like me. Or you can go all in and really believe that you're gonna succeed, and whatever it's gonna take to succeed. And surrounding yourself, that environment's so important, because you're the average person of the 5 people you hang out the most with. And so my strategy was, I hung out with a lot of mentors and teachers. And so people that actually had crises. One of my main teachers, Narazi Manolia, who's in LA, Master Z, he had broken his neck and had a lot of challenges. He's in his 70s now, but it was so easy to talk to him, and he was so positive because he had been there. He had to rebuild his whole neck, and he was an athlete and all these things. And I had about 3 or 4 other teachers like that allowed me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that mindset shift was the biggest difference in my whole healing. So in that, I also became a certified health coach. And so I realized right away, because I took on everyone at first, and I'm teaching them and I'm going through this curriculum. And I also had the curriculum from the course. And I realized that I work really well with high achievers and CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners. And so that was something I've learned early on, that these are my people. This is the demographic. I can work with anyone, and where I feel like I succeed and I'm able to be a support system and really empower others, or is it within that demographic? And so within that, right away, I was like, oh, I'm gonna become a certified executive coach. So I went to a whole other 1.5 year program and did that. And then in that, I was like, oh, I need to learn about NLP. So I did a 4-year program to be a neurolinguistics programming trainer. And then, master practitioner of mental emotional release techniques. And I kept going and going, and also doing a massive amount of energy work and Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga. And meditation really became my new triathlon as well. And so it was this whole, to me, that's why I look at the holistic aspect, because each person, you can look at the professional and then the personal, but it's really looking at a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual aspect, and seeing how there's an alignment, a congruency in that. And that's where that clarity comes from. And then you're able to embody it and have that alignment and be able to access that. And so I got really lucky, because most of my teachers and the mentors I hung out with were in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. They had a lot of clients, and I would learn their systems. So part of the challenge, when you're in a challenge, you learn your character. One of the things I learned about is that one of my skill sets is I'm a translator. I can go into many systems of information and not be attached to one way, but just be able to talk about it and connect the dots. And so that's what I was always interested in. When I studied over 150 dietary and lifestyle theories, I wasn't really attached to one way. I was like, well, what are they all saying? What does it mean to stabilize your blood sugar? What is have an anti-inflammatory diet? Like, what are these basic things that we're not taught in school, that we're dancing around or yo-yoing in these different diets or lifestyles, where the whole goal in life, I think, is sustainable results. And that comes from finding inner peace. And so this is a huge theme within what I teach and facilitate, and then also coach. At the end of the day, peeling back the layers of that onion, yoking and connecting the dots for someone, it's really that they can rest in the moment and be present and find that inner peace, that moment inside, that you're enough, that you're going to be okay no matter what, and that we're not attached to an outcome or result, which is very hard to say for entrepreneurs, and that for very high achievers that are goal focused. And so that's not saying that do not have goals. It's saying that, yes, we can have intentions and goals. And at the end of the day, like they say in the Tao Te Ching, do your work and step back. How can you allow things to be what they are, and you understanding what your puzzle piece is in life? And so I feel like in my origin story, I was very lucky, because I was able to have this time where my life being a high achiever, I was always go, go, go. And I think as a workaholic, you don't have time to have problems. And then my main way I dealt with stress was I would just go run to 6 to 10 miles, or I go swim because I was a swimmer growing up. And so that's how I dealt with stress. And then when that was taken away from me, it was like my whole identity crisis and how my survival strategy was taken away, how I had to really deal with myself for the first time and start understanding, what are my strengths? What are my unique abilities? And really understanding what I'm not too, which really makes decision making a lot easier. And so I think as entrepreneurs, and I know I'm kind of going on I'm coming back, but I want to make this point. A lot of times we want to take on a lot of roles and we want to do a lot of things, and we're good problem solvers. And so one of those things is just learning what are your strengths, and then how do you delegate and get other people that are amazing at the things you don't necessarily want to do, you can do. And how do you get people to groups together and teams together that will be able to support the vision, and for you to really have self-care and to be rested and still be on fire in what your passion is and what you're doing in the world and helping people, or your service and product that you're offering. And so I was really able to learn these lessons very deeply because I had no way out really. And I basically did not want to be in doctor's offices for the rest of my life. And so again, I got very lucky because I got amazing clients off the bat. And a lot of times people are like, how did you get into executive coaching when you were like in your early 30s? Like what 55-year-old is going to listen to a 30-year-old or even a 45-year-old? And what was great is I was an executive communication coach. And what that means is I was super niched. I had a sales background. I had a very successful sales background, a leadership background. I was literally always put into the leadership role if I was in a group, from, again, I kind of mentioned that in high school all the way up through the corporate ladder. And so something that I specialized in was helping CEOs fundraise tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. What is that process from the start to the finish? How to deal with objections, how to deal with high stake environments and situations. And so I hyper specialized in the beginning of my career, which allowed me to work with other amazing CEO coaches because I wasn't competing with them. It was a very specific skill set that I was teaching. And then over time, just from working with so many companies like Hyperloop and Sony and just bigger companies, smaller companies, startups, I was really able to see how do you, after you get this funding, if it's, C to Series A to Series B, C, a lot of times I would be the company from Series A to Series D even, that how do you scale? What do you do with this money? What is the strategy? How do we work with processes, procedures, and structures within a company? And so it was great because that little seed or that foundation and that niche that I did, it really allowed me to broaden and get excited because I get really curious and I love learning. And again, I'm this translator. I love going and studying and learning about something and then coming back and telling people like, these are the 5 things you need to know. And so in this, I started building curriculum and programming for onboarding and companies and just navigating communication, if it's multicultural communication, to just understanding how to move through problem solving and, anything from weekly meetings to just how do you put in like gentle structure so there's a common language within the company so that you're more efficient, productive, and get results quickly. And so I was getting great results with that. And I've been, part of firms of 10 to 12 coaches to I've been on my own. So I had this a great, range. And then a few years ago, after doing this for a while and helping a lot of individuals and companies and groups, I got approached by a few companies that were curious about this curriculum I created. And one of them was Southwestern, which is one of the largest consulting and coaching firms in the world for sales, and is also the oldest sales company in the United States. They were founded in 1855, and they approached me and they wanted me to develop their executive coaching program. And so it was great. And so we went through that whole acquisition process of being audited, and it's very thorough. It took about 6 months. I mean, it was a lot. And a lot of the skill sets that I teach CEOs and entrepreneurs I did in the whole interview process. So when I met the CEO for the first time, one of the first questions he asked me was, what's most important to you? Which is, what are your values? And so I had done research on the company, obviously, and we had very aligned values. It wasn't like I changed my values. Like, we had very aligned values. So I talked about empowerment and impact and making a difference in people's lives, and what, being at service, because I really believe that's a huge core aspect. And within about 9 minutes of just talking about my values and what's most important to me, he's like, how can we work together? And so there's so many tools and modalities within communication and connection and building trust and rapport. And really, how do you cut through the surface level and get to the heart of the matter? And so that put me on a journey for about a year and a half of moving part-time to Nashville to integrate the company and integrate all the curriculum. And then during COVID, being in this post-acquisition phase, I had a vision about 9 years prior that, wow, if I was in all these corporations and I'd go to the offices and things, but I was like, wow, if we were in nature, if we were in the middle of nature and we were able to slow down and really get these breakthroughs and this transformation of this information, how would that change this entrepreneur or this leader or the CEO or the C-suite team? And so I felt very strong about this. And I had this clear vision of a retreat center in nature. Because I was like, that's what entrepreneurs want. That's what leaders want. They're going, going, going. They need to come and reset. And true visionaries, I know, and you might have heard this from other podcasts or listening to this podcast, you do need time off. You need time to reflect. You need white space, or whatever you want to call it. You need time where you're not being pressured, you're not working 12, 14-hour days, where you're able to do a whole reset for your mind and you get clarity. My husband and I, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and we went down, thank you. We went down the lower Rogue in Ashland, Oregon, or in the Rogue Valley. And we were completely off the grid for 4 days. No reception, no computers, no phones. And it was amazing. We're on this raft because my husband's an expert river rafting instructor. He was a guide when he was growing up. And it was amazing the conversations we're having. We're like, wow, we need to do this. And we live in nature. It's just we're so deep in our projects because that's what we get enthusiastic about. And it was like, wow, we need to get back to this. Like, we need to do more of this, because the amount of clarity and decision making that happened, it was amazing. And that's what I really want to facilitate and hold space for others. And so in 2020, I moved up to Mount Shasta, California. I went on this whole journey to kind of find this place, and I got to Mount Shasta and I was like, this is the place. And so I was up there for a year and a half before I found a property. I bought another rental, and then I bought this property. It was a 90-acre property that already had a house and a few structures on it. And then I built 7 geodesic domes and some other buildings with a sauna and cold plunge. And we're finally done. And Kalika got to come up in March to view it. And it's something where I feel like it's my next level of being at service, because we're at this rat race. Like, it's just craziness. And I feel that if people are able to slow down, take a breath, learn some additional like high performance mindset tools and some communication tools and visionary tools, or just even have a refresh, that they're able to come back and have a deeper connection with themselves. And this is where that inner peace comes in. Inner peace comes in. And you're able to breathe and be present within yourself and have such a deep connection, which allows you to have a deep connection with others. We're so hard on ourselves. We have to learn how to let go and know that, if we look at mistakes or things we mess up, they're learning lessons. And really, how do we hold that space for ourselves? And then the beauty of that is we're able to hold space for others, because anything we do to ourselves, we do to others. And to me, to have those profound moments, being able to, if it's looking at night up at the stars and being able to see the stars without any of the city lights, to just be able to walk in nature, have that forest bathing, to be able to have that aha moment, that breakthrough, That to me is what life's about, that these slowing down moments, these key moments in life, and then we bring it back, we integrate it, and that's how we shift our habits and routines and really have this empowerment of being present in the moment. And so for me, that's a huge part of the life's mission right now. And then I still facilitate and coach and then really just help leadership programming too, because it's something that I'm really passionate about. And the more that I can just educate and empower other people, it's not about me. I'm very good at teaching the how and the step-by-step strategies, but I really just want people to make it their own and then them to go teach it to others. And it has nothing really to do with me at a certain point. And to me, that's the ripple effect of empowerment. So those are some of my origin stories. I have a lot of sub stories because I feel like in my journey, I was very lucky. I had so much mentorship and teachers, and it took me around the world. I've been to so many retreats and workshops and curriculum and had so many adventures. I've traveled over 75 countries. I just feel very fortunate in my life at this point of the opportunities, and then also just being a serial entrepreneur, just continuing how can I, help other businesses, and then also enjoy building my business and the businesses I'm in part of, and doing joint ventures. And I feel like it's all very exciting. So it's finding that passion inside you and really being clear on your life purpose. And then how do you serve? How do you share that with others, if it's through a product or service or mentorship or giving back? It's to me that contribution is the key thing at this point. So thank you so much for listening.
And I went to Mount Shasta because I wanted to take a look at your center because I was looking for a location for our annual EO retreat. And I know that you facilitate a lot of retreats for EO and YPOs. Tell us about how your center helps support an annual retreat.
So I really feel like some key components of annual retreats are you want a novel experience. I think as entrepreneurs, we want to do something unusual that gets all our senses involved, and we're able to connect with our forums, and we're able to have this whole experience. And so I really believe with the geodesic domes and the location of Mount Shasta, that it's a very different, novel, unique glamping experience. And then what's awesome is it's like an adult camp playground during the day. So the property's on over 90 acres. So it's like having your own park in your backyard, and you can go on trails. We have trails and roads throughout the property. You can go on for over 3 hours and never go on the same road or trail. And there's so much to do in Mount Shasta. So Mount Shasta is obviously a international destination. It's a very spiritual place, and it's a very outdoorsy place. So if like spirituality is not your thing, or that's a little bit of your thing, it's like the best place for hiking and being able to rock climb. And it's the place of high lakes. So if you love lakes, like mountain lakes, this is your place. And so there's just a lot of adventuring that can go on, from paragliding to, I mean, it's just, there's so many things you can do around the mountain. And it's even just going up on the mountain and hiking and doing, just walking around. I mean, it's a whole experience. And so for me, and then on top of it, having facilitators, I facilitate, but I love having other facilitators come. I'm not attached to that I'm the one all be all for all the forum retreats that are going to come probably to the Aura Center, the retreat center. It's really, having that half day or full day of facilitation, and then the other days exploring with your forum, and then having amazing chefs that, organic food, freshly prepped. You don't have to think about anything. And to me, it's about being a retreat in a box. Because I think as forum leaders or the person that is elected to be the forum yearly retreat coordinator that year, it gets really stressful because you have to coordinate, you have to find a facilitator, you have to find a location, you have to collect the money, there's a whole agenda that's putting together. And so I'm very aware of this. And so I really wanted to create an experience where it was turnkey. You make one phone call. All you have to really figure out is your transportation up there, and we'll figure out the rest, or help you, we'll figure out after listening to you and asking questions and tailoring to the experience and what you do want to do there. We can help you with curated contacts and people so that the actual planning is not stressful. So for me, that was a key thing for forums and masterminds and just those types of groups I worked with for over 15 years. I was just like, this, how do we make this easy and then fun? And then we're also having quality time where we're connecting with our forum to take it to the next level. And then obviously work on our businesses and things like that. So to me, that was very important.
Well, when I went to go visit, I just thought it was so thoughtful and intentional because you also have these, different places where if you wanted to do indoor yoga or if you wanted to do a cold plunge, I mean, there's two separate kitchens and there's so many there you can sleep in the main house or you can sleep in the domes. And then you also have that little car. Was that the
Oh yeah, the
ATV?
gator.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
and
course,
then
before, yeah.
and then I discovered a labyrinth. You created a labyrinth. So if people wanted to do mindful walking, that's also an opportunity as well too. And it was really beautiful, walking to your living room, seeing your sound bowls because you also do sound bowls, and a
Mhm. Oh
gigantic
yeah.
kitchen and you really took care of me and my friend Rosalia who came to visit as well too because she was also looking to rent a place for other retreats for her spiritual retreats and you just really just took care of us. So I thought that was just so wonderful to be with you.
It was really special. And that's one of my favorite things is holding space for others. And how do you create that experience from the moment you walk in and just being able to so that people can have deep connection and creating, outdoor spaces to nooks to little meditation areas all through the property. How do you have this so that people are able to access that and it's organic in
Yeah.
their experience? So
And you took us to Mount Shasta, it was still snowing. Like it was so beautiful to be able to be part. And then you made that beautiful big fire. And I think I
yeah, that
fell
was
asleep. It was my
I
best
felt
sleep.
really I was felt really lucky because it literally I felt like I made a fire in 2 to 3 minutes. I was like, "Oh, my husband would be so proud of me. He's like the king of expert of fire making." And I feel like when I moved up there from LA, I was okay at making fires. I didn't really understand it, but there's a whole technical aspect of doing it. So anyways, that was really fun connecting with you and Rosalind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and so it's for me, it's just how can we get people up there because I really believe that type of environment, that novel experience is what is going to help with facilitating more transformation and really that to me again it all comes back down to inner peace and finding that place inside of you where you can rest and be okay and to me nature is the huge facilitator of that.
Yeah, and being under the stars. I mean, those domes are absolute. They're just decked out. I mean, they're so beautiful. Like, and you're thinking like glamping. Like this is like Four Seasons glamping, and it was really beautiful. And what's great is because we have a lot of forum members. Some of them snore, so it's so perfect that they can have
Oh
their own
yeah.
dome.
Well, that I think when people, I don't know if you've glamped before, anyone who's listening, what I was very strategic about is I wanted most of the domes, there's 7 domes, and 6 of them have views of Mount Shasta, and then one's in the woods that has like a semi view of Mount Shasta. And they're close together, but they're not too close. So you have like this little private area, and there's an outdoor area with chairs and a hammock. And so like you can do all this outdoor like readings, taking a nap during the day, but you're not on top of people. Like sometimes you go to places, it's like cabin after cabin or dome after dome after dome when you're in the wilderness and you can like hear your neighbor. And that's the whole reason you want to have a little privacy, but you don't feel like you're really out there where you can't see anyone. So that was it took a long time to figure out where to place the domes.
Well, I
All
remember you had mentioned that you wanted a place where you couldn't hear any cars.
Yeah, that was a huge well, Mount Shasta Highway 5 goes through it. And so why it took me a year and a half to find the property was and that's a whole other podcast, probably just like how to build a retreat center and how to find a property. It was so key to me that I did not want to hear the highway. And so that's really was one of the main challenges was the majority of the places, even though you're in this very mountain-esque, like beautiful place, if you go outside of most of the places in Mount Shasta, you hear the freeway. And so that was a huge that was the thing that I kept on coming up against. And then when I found this property, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy.
So,
So
Yeah, no, this is a global podcast, and a lot of times we always get people incoming, like they want to do something in LA or they want to do something in California. So we definitely will, let people know about your place, and hopefully next year, when we have our annual retreat, we can be up there because it was really outstanding. It was really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really fun hosting the two of you. Like I felt like we had so much fun too. And we even did the sound baths and in actually Mount Shasta. So one of the other activities you can do is just going into the crystal shops. There's all these crystal shops and they have the largest uptones is probably the highest quality sound bowl that you can purchase. They're pretty expensive and they're very high quality. They're basically their largest store in the nation is in Mount Shasta. There's over 500 sound bowls, which we were able to go into, and Kalika got to play, and you could play anyone you want, and they have them like in a certain order that already is in harmony with the different notes. And so I feel like that's like a really special experience for people to have is these little things that are very unique to Mount Shasta. So
So if people wanted to learn more about your coaching and also about the center, how will they contact you?
oh, that's great. You can just go on my LinkedIn. So that's a very easy way. It's just Katy Gala on LinkedIn. Also my website, which is Katy Gala, KatyGala.com. So katygala.com. And then the Aura Center, the website is aurashasta.com. That's AURA and then Shasta, SHASTA.com. So any of those, you can contact me. And then Kalika has my cell phone and my email. My email is really easy. It's just katy@katygala.com. I really am here to support and be at service. So even if we don't work together or you don't necessarily come to my retreat center in Mount Shasta, I know a lot about retreat centers or however I can be at service within even coaching and facilitation too. So yeah, that's how you can contact me.
You also know a lot of different modalities. You mentioned earlier that you are trained and certified in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and also nonviolent communication. So I would love to have another podcast with you to dive deeper in some of the things that you actually teach these entrepreneurs. You know, like you said, they were 50 plus, 45 plus, and here you are, a 30-year-old, teaching them these communication tactics that made them successful in raising tens of millions of dollars. So I definitely would love for you to come back and, be on another podcast. What do you think about that?
I think that's really fun. And I would love to do that. I really believe there's certain skill sets we're just not taught in school. And these little things, they're little bite-sized step-by-step processes and understanding. And it's really just understanding how people process information because the best communicators are the most flexible and adaptable. And once you understand that not everyone's seeing the reality the way you're seeing it, you're able to meet people where they're at, and it's a whole other way of navigating in low stake or high stake conversations and presentations. And I think that, to me, I'm very passionate about the work because it's not only profound in your business and transforms your business and how you do business, and you can obviously make greater profits, your team's happier, company culture. It's really personally too, and your intimate relationships, your friends. It's just a whole thing. Like, how do we become more efficient with our communication so that life's easier and it's easier to get what we want, and everyone else gets what they want. So that's my whole thing. So I'd love to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the EO Wonder podcast, and I look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much, Kalika.